The forest floor crunched under Oliver's boots as he walked between the tall purple trees. Ripley trotted beside him, her black and white fur catching the afternoon light. The 8-year-old boy carried a sample container in one hand while his other hand brushed against the rough bark of the alien vegetation. His parents told him to stay close to the research station, but the forest was safe. At least, it had been safe until today. Oliver stopped when he heard the crash. Something big had fallen from the sky about 200 meters ahead. Smoke rose above the canopy, and Ripley made a low sound in her throat. She was a honey badger, brought from Earth 2 years ago when his parents started working on Haven's Edge. Most people thought honey badgers were cute when they were small. Ripley was fully grown now, weighing about 14 kilos, and she was anything but cute. She was fierce and fearless and loyal. "Should we check it out?" Oliver asked her. Ripley sniffed the air and moved forward. Oliver followed because wherever Ripley went, he went too. They had been together since she was a kid, orphaned during transport. His parents let him keep her as part of their research into how humans bonded with Earth animals. The research was going well. Oliver loved Ripley more than anything in the world. The crash site was small. A pod, barely bigger than a closet, had torn through 3 trees before hitting the ground. The metal was scorched and dented. Oliver approached carefully while Ripley circled the wreckage, sniffing every corner. The door hung open, and inside, something moved. "Hello," Oliver called. That a small creature crawled out. It looked like an insect, but walked on 2 legs. It was covered in a hard shell that glistened green and blue. One of its 4 arms was twisted at a wrong angle, and there was dark fluid leaking from cracks in its armor. The creature was about the size of a house cat. "Please," it said in a high, chirping voice. A small device on its chest translated the words into English. "Please help. They are coming." Oliver knelt down. His parents taught him to be kind to all species. "Who's coming?" "The hunters. The Crimson Talon. They want me dead because I saw what they did." The creature's compound eyes looked up at him. "I am Pip. I witnessed them destroy a medical transport. 300 civilians died. They cannot let me testify." Oliver did not fully understand war crimes or testimony, but he understood that someone needed help. He carefully picked up Pip, cradling the injured alien in his arms. Ripley sniffed Pip once, then seemed to accept him. If Ripley trusted someone, that was good enough for Oliver. "The station has a medical bay," Oliver said. "Come on." They made it back to the research station in 15 minutes. The station was not large, just 5 buildings arranged in a circle with a central courtyard. 30 people lived here, mostly scientists studying how Earth plants and animals adapted to alien worlds. Oliver's mother was in the medical bay when he burst through the door with Pip. "Mom, this is Pip. He's hurt." His mother, Dr. Sarah Wells, immediately shifted into professional mode. She took Pip from Oliver and placed him on an examination table. Her scanner beeped as it analyzed his injuries. Broken arm, cracked carapace, internal bleeding. "Oliver, where did you find him?" "In the forest." He said someone's hunting him. Dr. Wells looked up sharply. "Hunting him? Who?" "The Crimson Talon," Pip said weakly. "They tracked my escape pod. They will be here soon." Before Dr. Wells could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The intercom crackled to life. "All personnel, we have an unidentified ship in orbit. They're hailing us." Dr. Wells grabbed Oliver's hand. "Stay close to me." They rushed to the main building where the station director, Robert Chun, was speaking with someone on the view screen. The person on screen was massive, with scales the color of dried blood and eyes like a predator. This was Commander Drax of the Crimson Talon. "We are tracking a fugitive," Drax said, his voice deep and cold. "Our sensors indicate the target landed near your facility. Surrender the fugitive, and we will leave peacefully." Director Chun stood firm. "This is a civilian research station under Earth protection. We don't harbor criminals, but we also don't surrender refugees without proper authority." "Show me your warrant." "We do not need warrants," Drax replied. "We have contracts. The fugitive is property of our client. You have 10 minutes to comply, or we will retrieve our property by force." The screen went dark. Director Chun turned to face the gathered staff. His face was pale but determined. Get everyone into the main building. Send a distress signal to the nearest patrol. And somebody find that refugee. Oliver's heart pounded. Pip was in the medical bay, barely conscious. His mother was about to speak when Oliver bolted from the room. Ripley followed at his heels, her claws clicking on the floor. They reached the medical bay in seconds. Pip was still on the table, his translator flickering. "They will kill me," Pip whispered. "They will kill anyone who helps me." Oliver looked at Ripley. She looked back at him with dark, knowing eyes. His parents always said honey badgers were special because they never backed down from anything. Lions, snakes, even humans if they felt threatened. Ripley had no fear. She taught Oliver to be brave too. "Then we hide," Oliver said. "Together." He picked up Pip carefully and moved toward the storage building at the edge of the compound. It was filled with equipment and supply crates. Lots of places to hide. Ripley led the way, checking each corner as they went. Oliver found a spot behind a stack of containers and settled in with Pip cradled against his chest. Outside, he heard boots hitting the ground. Lots of them. The mercenaries had landed. Ripley positioned herself between Oliver and the door, her body low and tense. She made no sound, but Oliver could feel her readiness. Whatever came through that door would have to go through her first, and honey badgers, Oliver knew, did not let anything hurt their family. Director Chun faced the Crimson Talon soldiers in the courtyard. There were 12 of them, each one representing a different warrior species from across the galaxy. The leader, Commander Drax, towered over everyone at nearly 3 meters tall. His scales gleamed red in the fading light, and his claws left marks in the concrete as he walked. "Where is the fugitive?" Drax demanded. "Not here, Chen Lit." He was not a brave man by nature, but he had principles. "Your sensors must be wrong. We're a research station. We study plants." Drax tilted his massive head. "Our equipment does not make errors. The fugitive's pod crashed in your forest. The fugitive is here. If you do not produce it, we will search ourselves." The other scientists stood behind Chun, some of them trembling. They had come to Haven's Edge to study peaceful things, to learn how life adapted to new worlds. None of them signed up for this, but none of them moved to help the mercenaries either. Chun felt a small surge of pride in his people. "You have no legal authority here," Chun said. "This is Earth-protected space. Earth is 3 weeks away," Drax said simply. "We will be gone in 3 hours. Your law means nothing without enforcement." He gestured to his troops. They spread out immediately, moving with practiced efficiency. 6 went to the residential buildings. 3 approached the laboratories. The last 3, including Drax, walked toward the storage area. Chin's stomach dropped. Oliver had gone that direction. Sarah Wells grabbed his arm. "My son is in there," she whispered urgently. "I know," Chin said quietly. "I know." Inside the storage building, Oliver held Pip close and tried not to breathe too loudly. The little alien was shivering despite the warm air. Ripley had not moved from her position by the door. Her muscles were coiled tight, ready to spring. Oliver had seen her kill snakes back on Earth. He had seen her fight off a wild dog that wandered too close to their home. But these were not snakes or dogs. These were trained killers with weapons and armor. "I am sorry," Pip whispered through his translator. "I have brought death to you." "You didn't bring anything," Oliver whispered back. "They did. Bad people always blame the victims." Oliver did not fully understand what he was saying. He was repeating something his father once told him about bullies, but it seemed to fit. Pip had witnessed a crime and run away. That made him the victim, not the criminal. The people chasing him were the real villains. Footsteps approached outside. Heavy ones. Oliver pressed himself further back behind the crates. Ripley's head lowered slightly, and a sound came from deep in her throat. It was not a growl. It was something darker, something primal. Oliver had only heard her make that sound once before when a stranger tried to grab him at a market. The stranger had backed away immediately after hearing it. The door exploded inward. Not opened, not unlocked, but kicked with such force that it flew off its hinges. Commander Drax filled the doorway, his red scales seeming to glow in the dim light. 2 other soldiers flanked him. One was covered in metallic armor that looked fused to his body. The others seemed to be made of pure energy, shifting between solid and transparent. "There you are, little one," Drax said, his eyes locking onto Pip. Then his gaze shifted to Oliver. "And you have made a friend. How unfortunate." Oliver stood up on shaking legs. He was terrified, but he held Pip protectively. "Leave him alone. He didn't do anything wrong. He is a witness to an inconvenient truth," Drax said. "That makes him a problem. And you, child, are now also a problem." The armored soldier laughed. "The kid has a pet. Look at the fuzzy little thing. It thinks it's scary." Drax glanced at Ripley. His database implant fed him information. Honey badger, earth mammal, mustelid family. Mass, approximately 14 kilograms. Threat level, minimal. He dismissed her immediately. "Step aside, child," Drax said. "We do not want to hurt you, but we will if necessary. Give us the witness." Oliver's voice cracked when he spoke. "No, no." Drax seemed genuinely puzzled. "You would die for a creature you just met? Human sentimentality is a weakness. You should learn that before it kills you." "Ripley," Oliver said softly. "Protect." It was a command they had practiced for fun. Oliver would hide a treat, tell Ripley to protect it, and she would guard it fiercely from anyone who tried to take it. It was a game. Except this time, Oliver was the treat, and the people trying to take him were not playing. Ripley moved. Not forward in a charge, but sideways, placing herself directly in the path between the mercenaries and Oliver. She was so small compared to them. Drax was at least 20 times her mass. His soldiers were armored and armed. But Ripley did not care about size or weapons. She cared about Oliver. "Adorable," the armored soldier said. He took a step forward. "I'll just move the little beast," and he never finished the sentence. Ripley launched herself at him with explosive speed. She did not go for his chest or his face where the armor was thickest. She went for the joints, the weak points where metal met metal. Her teeth found the hydraulics in his knee and bit down with over 400 pounds of pressure per square inch. The armor cracked. The soldiers screamed and fell. Before the others could react, Ripley was already moving to her next target. The energy being tried to grab her, but she somehow sensed the attack and twisted mid-air. Her claws raked across the energy field, disrupting it. The being flickered and solidified involuntarily, and Ripley's teeth found purchase on what passed for an arm. Drax finally reacted. He swung his massive arm at Ripley, but she was already gone, circling back to Oliver. The second soldier moved in, and Ripley met him head-on. She was bleeding now from a glancing blow, but she did not slow down. She fought with a fury that belonged to something much larger and much more dangerous. "What is that thing?" The energy being shouted tried to reform his disrupted field. Drax accessed his database again. Honey badger, known for aggressive behavior, thick skin, fearlessness. Warning, will fight opponents many times its size. Classification update needed. "It's protecting its human," Drax said, understanding dawning. "That's not a pet. That's a warrior." Blood spattered across the storage room floor. Some of it was Ripley's, but most belonged to the mercenaries. The armored soldier was down, his leg servo completely destroyed. The energy being flickered weakly, trying to maintain cohesion after Ripley disrupted his field. Only Drax remained fully operational, and even he had claw marks across his scaled forearm. "Retreat," Drax commanded. His soldiers limped backward through the broken door. "Seal them inside." Oliver heard heavy equipment being moved outside. They were blocking the exits. He dropped to his knees beside Ripley, who was panting heavily. There was a burn mark across her side where an energy weapon had grazed her. Blood matted her fur in several places, but her eyes were still alert, still focused on the door. "You're hurt," Oliver said, tears streaming down his face. He pulled off his shirt and tried to wrap it around her wounds. Ripley licked his hand once, then turned her attention back to the blocked entrance. Pip crawled closer. "Your companion is brave, but we are trapped. They will bring more soldiers." Oliver looked around the storage building. There were no windows, only the main door and a small ventilation shaft near the ceiling. The shaft was barely 30 centimeters wide, too small for an adult, but maybe, just maybe, large enough for a child. Outside, Drax contacted his ship. "Bring the rest of the unit down." All 16 soldiers. I don't care if it seems excessive. That creature in there is more dangerous than our intelligence suggested. His second in command, a female warrior named Terra with 4 arms and crystalline skin, looked at the casualty report. Commander, 3 soldiers injured by a single animal that masses less than 15 kilos. The crew is asking questions. Tell them it's an Earth creature, Drax said. That should explain everything. Tara Bozad. Commander, the database says Earth animals are rated by mass and biological capabilities. This creature should not have been able to. The database is wrong. Drax interrupted. Earth doesn't rate danger by size. They rate it by attitude. I should have known better. I've fought human soldiers before. They're not the biggest or the strongest, but they never quit. Their animals are the same. Within minutes, 16 fully armed mercenaries surrounded the storage building. They had plasma cutters ready to breach the walls. Drax gave the order, and sparks flew as the cutters began slicing through metal. Inside, Oliver heard the sound and knew they were out of time. The vent, he said to Pip. Can you fly? My wings are damaged, but I can glide short distances. Oliver climbed onto a stack of crates and examined the ventilation shaft. It led upward into the station's air circulation system. He could fit. Pip could fit. But Ripley could not. She was too big, too broad across the shoulders. Come on, girl, Oliver called down to her. We have to go. Ripley looked up at him, then at the walls where the plasma cutters were burning through. She made a decision. She started climbing the crates, her claws scraping for purchase on the smooth surfaces. Oliver reached down and helped pull her up. At the vent opening, he pushed Pip through first. The small alien disappeared into the darkness. Your turn, Oliver told Ripley, but Ripley would not go. She looked at the vent, then at Oliver, then back at the walls. She understood. If she went into the vent, she could not fight. And if she could not fight, she could not protect Oliver. She made a low sound and moved back toward the edge of the crates, positioning herself between Oliver and the cutting soldiers. No, Oliver Sobeth. No, you have to come. Please, Ripley, please. The wall gave way. A section fell inward with a crash, and mercenaries poured through the gap. Ripley launched herself at them immediately. She was a black and white blur of fury, attacking anything that moved toward Oliver. The soldiers were ready this time. They had stun nets and shock batons. They had learned from their mistakes, but Ripley did not care what they had. She tore through the stun net with her teeth and claws. When a shock baton hit her, she convulsed but kept fighting. When they shot her with a tranquilizer dart, she pulled it out with her teeth and charged again. Nothing stopped her. Nothing slowed her down. Oliver watched in horror as Ripley took hit after hit. She was going to die protecting him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Then Pip's voice came from inside the vent. Oliver, come now. While they're distracted, every instinct told Oliver to stay, to fight beside Ripley. But he knew what she wanted. She wanted him safe. That was all she had ever wanted. So Oliver did the hardest thing he had ever done. He climbed into the vent and started crawling away, Pip guiding him with whispered directions. Behind him, he could hear Ripley's snarls and the mercenaries' shouts. The ventilation system connected all the buildings. Oliver and Pip crawled through narrow passages, took turns at random, descended shafts using maintenance ladders. Oliver's whole body shook with sobs, but he kept moving. Pip stayed close, offering what comfort he could with his small, broken body. They emerged in the environmental control building, a small structure filled with the station's air and water processing equipment. Oliver collapsed on the floor and cried until he could not cry anymore. Pip sat beside him, his translator chirping softly. Your companion loved you very much, Pip said. Loves, Oliver corrected through his tears. She loves me. She's not dead. She can't be dead. But even as he said it, he was not sure. Ripley had taken so much damage. No creature, no matter how tough, could survive what he had seen. Oliver curled into a ball and wished he had never found that crash site, never brought Pip back to the station, never made Ripley fight an impossible battle. Outside the environmental building, Drax examined the storage room. The honey badger was gone, escaped into the vents with the child and the witness. 6 more of his soldiers were injured. This was supposed to be a simple retrieval mission. Instead, it had become a disaster. Find them, Drax ordered. Search every building, every room, every vent. And when you find that creature, kill it immediately. Don't try to capture it. Don't underestimate it again. Just kill it. Tara approached him carefully. Commander, we just received a transmission. A human patrol ship has entered the system. They're responding to the station's distress signal. Estimated arrival, 90 minutes. Drax's eyes narrowed. 90 minutes. He needed to complete this mission and leave before the humans arrived. Otherwise, this would become an interstellar incident. He looked at his injured soldiers and made a cold calculation. Accelerate the search. We have 1 hour to find the targets and eliminate them. After that, we leave whether the mission is complete or not. His soldiers spread out across the station, weapons ready, determination hardened by their injuries. They were professional killers, and they had been humiliated by a child and an animal. Now it was personal. The environmental control room hummed with machinery. Oliver sat against a water processor, holding Pip carefully in his lap. His eyes were red from crying, and his hands shook. Every sound made him flinch. Every footstep in the hallway sent his heart racing. They will find us eventually, Pip said quietly. This building is small. Few places to hide. Oliver knew Pip was right, but he could not think clearly. All he could see in his mind was Ripley fighting impossible odds. All he could hear were her battle cries and the mercenaries' weapons firing. He had left her behind. He had abandoned his best friend. I should have stayed, Oliver whispered. I should have fought with her. Then you would both be dead, Pip said. She chose to give you time to escape. Do not waste her sacrifice. She's not dead, Oliver said fiercely. Don't say that. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Multiple sets, moving methodically from room to room. They were close now. Oliver looked around desperately. The environmental control room was maybe 6 meters square, packed with equipment. There were no exits except the door they came through. No vents large enough to escape through again. They were trapped. Under the coolant tank, Pip suggested, pointing with his good arm. It is a tight space, but we might fit. Oliver crawled under the large cylindrical tank, pulling Pip with him. The space was cramped and smelled like chemicals, but it concealed them from immediate view. They pressed themselves against the back wall and waited. Oliver could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. The door opened. 2 mercenaries entered, their weapons sweeping the room. One was a Skarn warrior like Drax, but smaller and younger. The other was a cyborg, half machine and half organic tissue. They moved efficiently, checking behind each piece of equipment. Nothing here, the cyborg said, moving to the next room. They were about to leave when Pip's translator made a small chirping sound. It was dying, its power cell damaged in the crash. The sound was quiet, but in the silent room, it might as well have been a scream. Both mercenaries stopped and turned toward the coolant tank. Found them, the Skarn said into his communicator. Environmental control. Send backup. Oliver's breath caught. They were caught. No escape this time. He held Pip closer and closed his eyes, waiting for the end. But instead of weapons fire, he heard something else. A sound he knew better than anything in the world, that low, guttural growl. The sound Ripley made when she was ready to fight, that Oliver's eyes snapped open. Through the gap under the coolant tank, he could see the doorway. And there, limping badly but still moving, was Ripley. She was covered in blood and burns. One eye was swollen shut. Her left front leg dragged slightly. But she was alive, and she was here. The 2 mercenaries turned to face her. The cyborg raised his weapon. It's the animal from before. How did it survive? Ripley did not give them time to think. She charged, slower than before, but no less determined. The cyborg fired, and the plasma bolt caught her in the shoulder. Ripley spun with the impact, but kept coming. She hit the cyborg low, her teeth finding the exposed organic tissue around his joints. He screamed and fell. The Skarn warrior tried to grab her, but Ripley was already moving. She could not fight like before. Her body was failing, but she could still fight, and that was enough. She went for his eyes, his throat, any vulnerable point she could reach. The Skarn was stronger, bigger, better armed. But Ripley was desperate. She was protecting Oliver, and nothing else mattered. More mercenaries arrived. 4 of them, then 6. They poured into the small room, weapons ready. Ripley faced them all, bleeding and broken, but refusing to fall. Oliver could not watch anymore. He crawled out from under the tank, Pip still in his arms. "Stop!" Oliver shouted. "Please, stop hurting her." Commander Drax entered the room, his massive frame filling the doorway. He looked at Ripley, then at Oliver, then at the 6 injured mercenaries she had fought through to reach this room. Something like respect crossed his reptilian features. "That creature has more courage than most warriors I've fought," Drax said. "But courage is not enough." He raised his weapon, a heavy plasma cannon designed to punch through armored vehicles. "This ends now." Ripley positioned herself between Drax and Oliver one final time. She could barely stand. Her breathing was labored and wet. Blood pooled at her feet, but she would not move. She would not let them reach Oliver. Not while she still had breath in her body. Drax's finger tightened on the trigger. Oliver screamed, and then the entire building shook as something massive flew overhead. Through the windows, Oliver could see a ship, sleek and powerful, with Earth markings on its hull. The cavalry had arrived. Human patrol ship in orbit. Terra's voice crackled over Drax's communicator. "They're hailing us, demanding we stand down immediately." Drax lowered his weapon slightly. His mission was falling apart. Too much time wasted fighting one small animal. Too many injuries. And now, human military involvement. The calculation changed. This was no longer worth the cost. "Attention, Crimson Talon forces." A new voice boomed through the station speakers. "This is Captain Maria Rodriguez of the HMCS Defiant. You are in violation of Earth territorial protection. Surrender immediately or be fired upon." Drax looked at Oliver, then at Ripley, then at his injured soldiers. 16 trained mercenaries, and nearly half of them were wounded by a child's pet. The story would spread. Other mercenaries would laugh at him, but they would also remember. They would remember what happened when you underestimated Earth creatures. "We are leaving," Drax announced. "Withdraw to the ship." Mission aborted. But the witness, one of his soldiers, began. "Is not worth dying for," Drax finished. "The humans are here now. This is their problem." The mercenaries began pulling back, some of them limping, others being carried. Drax was the last to leave. He stopped at the door and looked back at Ripley one final time. She was still standing, still guarding Oliver, even though she should have been dead an hour ago. "Your companion is special, child," Drax said. "In all my years of fighting, I have never seen anything so small be so dangerous. Remember this. Size means nothing. Heart means everything." Then he was gone, his heavy footsteps receding down the hallway. Ripley stood for a moment longer, making sure the threat was truly gone. Then her legs gave out, and she collapsed. Oliver dropped Pip and rushed to her side, cradling her head in his lap. "You did it," Oliver sobbed. "You saved me. You saved us both." "Ripley's good." I looked up at him. Her tail moved slightly, a weak attempt at a wag. She had done her job. Oliver was safe. That was all that mattered. Her eye closed, and her breathing became very shallow. "No," Oliver said. "No, no, no. Stay with me, Ripley. Please stay with me. The humans are here. They'll have doctors. They can help. Just stay with me." But Ripley did not respond. She lay still in Oliver's arms, her blood soaking into his pants. And Oliver, 8 years old and more scared than he had ever been, held his best friend and prayed to any god who would listen. The human Marines arrived within minutes. They swept through the station in full combat gear, weapons raised, ready for a fight. What they found instead were terrified scientists, departing mercenaries, and one small boy crying over an injured animal. Captain Rodriguez was the first to reach the environmental control room. She was a compact woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. She took one look at the scene and immediately called for a medic. "Corporal Hayes, get over here now," she barked in her communicator. "Bring the veterinary trauma kit." Oliver looked up with hope blazing in his tear-stained eyes. "You can save her? Please, you have to save her." Rodriguez knelt beside him and gently checked Ripley's vital signs. Her scanner beeped weakly, detecting a heartbeat, but barely. "What is she?" I've never seen this species before. She's a honey badger, Oliver said. From Earth. Her name is Ripley. Rodriguez's expression changed. Recognition and something like awe flickered across her face. A honey badger. Of course. She looked at her Marines. Do any of you know what honey badgers are famous for? One Marine, a young man with corporal stripes, spoke up. They're the toughest animals on Earth, ma'am. Pound for pound, nothing fights harder. Exactly, Rodriguez said. She looked at Oliver with new understanding. Your friend here is legendary where we come from. If anything can survive these injuries, a honey badger can. Corporal Hayes arrived with a large medical kit. He was their xenobiology specialist, trained to treat any species in the galaxy. He scanned Ripley quickly, and his face grew grim. Multiple plasma burns, severe blood loss, 3 broken ribs, damaged lung, possible internal bleeding. Captain, I don't know if I can— Yes, you can, Rodriguez said firmly. You're going to stabilize her, and we're going to get her to the ship's medical bay. That's an order. Hayes nodded and began working. He applied biofoam to seal the wounds, injected broad-spectrum healing agents, and wrapped Ripley's torso in regenerative bandages. Oliver watched every movement, his hands clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. While Hayes worked, Rodriguez's Marines secured the station and gathered statement from the staff. Director Chun explained everything. The crash pod, the Crimson Talon's arrival, their threats, and the fight in the storage building. Sarah Wells, Oliver's mother, arrived and pulled her son into a fierce hug. Thank God you're alive, she sobbed. Ripley saved me, Oliver said. She fought all of them, Mom. She wouldn't let them touch me. Sarah looked down at the small, broken creature on the floor. She had studied honey badgers for years, had written papers about their fearless nature and incredible durability. But seeing it in person, seeing what one had done for her child, was something else entirely. She's family, Sarah said quietly. We'll do whatever it takes. Rodriguez stood and addressed the room. I need a statement from the witness. Where's the fugitive that started all this? Pip crawled out from under the coolant tank, his broken arm hanging at an awkward angle. I am here, Captain. I am Pip of the Council Refugee Program. The Crimson Talon was hired to silence me before I could testify about their war crimes. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. They attacked a civilian research station and threatened a child to get to you. That's going to be very expensive for whoever hired them. The Crimson Talon fled when you arrived, Pip said. But Commander Drax said something before he left. He said the child's companion was special. That size means nothing, but heart means everything. He's right, Rodriguez said. She looked at Ripley, now wrapped in bandages and barely breathing. Earth animals are different from most species in the galaxy. We don't just bond with gentle creatures. We bond with survivors, with fighters. This honey badger exemplifies what we value most: loyalty, courage, and never giving up. Hayes finished his work and carefully lifted Ripley onto a stretcher. I've done what I can here. We need to get her to the ship immediately. The medical bay has regeneration pods that might save her. Then let's move, Rodriguez ordered. She turned to Oliver. You're coming too. You and your parents. The transit to the HMCS Defiant took 15 minutes. The ship was a frigate designed for patrol and rapid response. Its medical bay was state-of-the-art, capable of treating humans and most known alien species. Hayes placed Ripley in a regeneration pod, a transparent cylinder filled with healing gel and medical nanobots. Oliver pressed his hands against the glass, watching as the gel enveloped Ripley's body. The machines hummed to life, and holographic displays showed her vital signs. They were weak, but holding steady. Hayes monitored everything closely, adjusting settings as needed. How long? Oliver asked. The pod will work for at least 48 hours, Hayes said. After that, we'll know if the treatment is working. But I have to be honest with you, Oliver. Her injuries are severe. Even with the best technology, there's no guarantee. She's a honey badger, Oliver said stubbornly. She doesn't give up. Ever. Rodriguez smiled slightly. That's the spirit. Your friend fought impossible odds and lived. That's worth something. Over the next 2 days, Oliver barely left the medical bay. He slept in a chair beside the regeneration pod, ate meals brought by sympathetic Marines, and talked to Ripley constantly. He told her about Earth, about the home they would return to, about all the adventures they would have once she was better. His parents stayed close, offering comfort when he needed it in space when he needed that too. Captain Rodriguez visited regularly. She brought reports about the diplomatic situation. The council was outraged by the Crimson Talon's actions. Warrants were issued. The mercenary company's license was suspended. The council member who hired them was under investigation. Pip would testify safely, and justice would be served. Your honey badger started something, Rodriguez told Oliver during one visit. Word is spreading about what happened here. Other species are asking questions about Earth animals. They want to know why a creature so small could be so dangerous. Because she loves me, Oliver said simply. Love makes you strong. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Yes. Yes, it does. On the third day, Ripley's vitals began to improve. Her heart rate strengthened. Her breathing steadied. The medical nanobots reported successful tissue regeneration. Hayes allowed himself a cautious smile. She's going to make it, he said. I don't know how, but she's going to make it. Oliver pressed his forehead against the glass and cried. But this time, they were tears of relief. 3 weeks passed before Ripley was strong enough to leave the regeneration pod. The medical nanobots had done their work, repairing tissue, mending bones, and eliminating infection. She emerged smaller than before, having lost weight during recovery, but her eyes were bright and alert. The moment she saw Oliver, her tail began to wag. Oliver hugged her carefully, mindful of the healing wounds still covered by synthetic skin patches. Ripley licked his face and made happy chirping sounds. Hayes watched with professional satisfaction. He had saved many lives during his career, but this one felt special. She's cleared for light activity, Hayes said. No fighting for at least another month. Her ribs are still healing. Oliver laughed through his tears. Did you hear that, Ripley? No fighting. Ripley looked at him with an expression that clearly said she would fight anything that threatened him, healed ribs or not. Some things never changed. Captain Rodriguez arranged transport back to Earth for Oliver's family. The research station on Haven's Edge was being rebuilt, but Sarah and her husband decided they needed time at home. Oliver needed normalcy after the trauma he experienced. Ripley needed familiar surroundings to complete her recovery. Before they left, Rodriguez called Oliver to her ready room. Pip was there too, his broken arm now properly healed thanks to the Defiance medical team. The small alien had been granted full asylum on Earth, and the Council had issued a formal apology for the attack on the research station. I wanted to speak with you before you go, Rodriguez said to Oliver. What happened on Haven's Edge is going to have consequences across the galaxy. Good consequences, I think. What do you mean? Oliver asked. Rodriguez pulled up a holographic display showing news feeds from dozens of worlds. The headlines all focused on the same story. How a human child's companion fought off elite mercenaries. How a creature weighing less than 15 kilos defeated soldiers trained to kill. How Earth animals were far more dangerous than anyone realized. The galaxy is learning about us, Rodriguez explained. Not just about humans, but about the creatures we choose as companions. They're starting to understand that Earth is different. We don't bond with the weak. We bond with survivors. Pip chirped in agreement. I have been asked to testify not only about the Crimson Talon's crimes, but also about what I witnessed on Haven's Edge. The Council wants to understand why a honey badger fought so hard for a human child. They want to understand the nature of your bonds. It's simple, Oliver said, scratching Ripley behind her ears. We're family. Family protects each other. That concept translates poorly in many cultures, Pip said. Most species form bonds based on utility or genetic imperative. The idea that a human and an entirely different species could develop such loyalty by choice is unusual, but powerful, Rodriguez added. The Crimson Talon mercenaries are telling stories about Ripley, about how she refused to stop, refused to die, refused to give up. Other mercenary companies are updating their threat assessments for Earth fauna. Honey badgers are now classified as high-level combatants. Oliver smiled at that. Ripley, oblivious to her new galactic reputation, was busy investigating Rodriguez's desk for anything interesting to steal. 2 weeks later, Oliver and Ripley were home. Their house sat on the edge of a forest preserve outside Seattle. The air smelled like pine and rain. Ripley explored the backyard with renewed energy, reacquainting herself with familiar scents. She climbed trees, dug holes, and generally behaved like the chaos creature she was born to be. Oliver's parents watched from the porch. Sarah held a tablet showing the latest updates from the galactic news networks. The story had grown beyond anything they imagined. Documentaries were being made about Earth animals. Universities were requesting samples and data. Tourist agencies were warning visitors about seemingly harmless Earth creatures. The galaxy thinks we're all like Ripley now, Sarah said with amusement. Fearless and unstoppable. Aren't we? Her husband replied. In a way, we are. Humans have always refused to accept limitations. We climb mountains because they're there. We explore oceans because they're deep. We go to space because it's vast. Ripley just showed them what that looks like in a more direct way. Oliver sat under a tree, watching Ripley chase squirrels. She was slower than before, still healing but happy. He thought about Commander Drax's final words. Size means nothing. Heart means everything. Those words felt true. His tablet chimed with an incoming message. It was from Captain Rodriguez. The message included a video file and a short note. Thought you'd want to see this. Oliver opened the video. It showed a council chamber, vast and filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. At the podium stood Pip, his small form projected large on holographic screens. He was testifying about the massacre, about the Crimson Talon's crimes, about the corruption that nearly cost him his life. But at the end of his testimony, Pip said something unexpected. I wish to also speak about courage. Before I met humans, I thought courage was about strength or power. But I watched a creature smaller than most council members fight warriors 20 times her size. I watched her refuse to stop, refuse to surrender, refuse to abandon her companion. That is true courage. That is what I learned from a honey badger named Ripley and a human child named Oliver. They taught me that size does not matter. What matters is how much you care about others. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives dismissed Pip's words as sentimentality. Others listened more carefully. A few began asking questions about Earth and its inhabitants. The video ended with the council voting unanimously to increase Earth's representation in galactic affairs. Oliver smiled and called to Ripley. She bounded over and climbed into his lap, something she had done since she was a kid. She was too big for it now, but neither of them cared. They sat together under the tree, enjoying the sunshine and the peace. Sarah took a photo of them from the porch. It would become one of the most famous images in human history. A boy and his honey badger, neither of them knowing they had changed the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be from Earth. Months later, at the Galactic Database headquarters, technicians updated the entry for honey badgers. The new description read, terrestrial carnivore from Earth. Small, but exceptionally dangerous. Known for fearlessness, tenacity, and powerful bite force. Will fight opponents many times its size without hesitation. Classification, high threat level. Approach with extreme caution. Note, often bonded with humans, which amplifies danger significantly. One technician looked at the entry and laughed. I still can't believe a 15-kilo animal took down trained mercenaries. His colleague, who had watched the security footage from Haven's Edge, shook his head. You're thinking about it wrong. It's not about the animal. It's about what the animal represents. Humans don't bond with things that quit. They bond with things that fight. And when you threaten that bond, you're not just fighting one creature. You're fighting everything that bond represents. What does it represent? Everything humans value. Loyalty, courage, family, love. The technician paused. The galaxy is learning that those things are more dangerous than any weapon. Back on Earth, Oliver and Ripley were just being themselves. They hiked through forests, played in streams, and lived each day as an adventure. Sometimes Oliver thought about Haven's Edge, about the fear and the violence. But mostly he thought about how lucky he was to have Ripley. And Ripley, who thought in simpler terms, knew only that Oliver was her human, and she would protect him forever. That was her nature. That was what honey badgers did. They never gave up, they never backed down, and they never abandoned their family. The galaxy was learning that lesson now. It was a lesson written in loyalty and sealed in courage. It was a lesson that would echo across the stars for generations. And it all began with one small creature who refused to stop fighting, no matter the odds, because that was what it meant to be from Earth. And the galaxy would never forget it.